So I'm going to provide a quick update in terms of what Beef Cow Research Council's been up to, especially with COVID-19 now in our current operations and how it's impacting what we do and how we move forward. In terms of specific activities that are very directly related to COVID-19, we have been providing science and technical support along with the other national organizations, really trying to focus in on emerging science and questions as they arise, especially as they relate to questions around the zoonotic disease and any concerns over animal human transmission, those types of things. We've also been, as requested, looking at technology opportunities and really trying to identify testing opportunities even to support our processing plant sector, those types of things. The other area we focused is the national groups as together have coordinated surveys of various industry stakeholders, basically to communicate more effectively to government where we're seeing supply chain disruptions and the most immediate impacts. So BCRC was responsible for engaging with veterinarians across the country and really trying to look at the largest impacts they're seeing. And of course, with our veterinarians, one of the biggest things is they need PPE, sanitation supplies every day for their operations, even before COVID, and trying to ensure that they continue to procure adequate supplies. The other one is shipment delays related to animal health products and or ingredients for animal health products that are ultimately impacting price and also availability in terms of shipping. So we continue to do those on an ongoing basis as needed. The other area we're working is related to some processing research activities that are getting underway or being explored. The first one is looking at options for remote inspection and grading services. In essence, doing a pilot project that looks at using cameras such that inspectors, if needed during an outbreak, could be remote, and potentially graders as well. These projects are looking to be piloted in some of our processing operations as we move forward. And then also looking at food safety and sanitation practices, just with the fact that with these plants putting in more barriers, more surfaces, basically there is higher risk for contamination, ensuring that procedures are developed to, in essence, mitigate any food safety risks, which a lot of it's more procedural, but we are ensuring there's food safety scientific support where requested. On the producer side, BCRC is really focused on extension and research, and with producers, our primary focus is extension and sharing of resources to support business decision-making processes during market disruptions. This hasn't necessarily meant that we're developing new resources, it's more bringing to light through our blog various calculators, decision-making tools, blogs that are available to support producers as they look to extend feeding of cattle, alternative feeds, and basically just manage market disruptions and how it impacts their bottom lines. And so this is just an example of one of the calculators around different costs of feed ingredients and allowing producers to basically look at alternative production plans as they need to. So we continue to put forward those resources and just really highlight them to make sure that producers see them as they're trying to juggle the decisions they have to. Our big challenge with BCRC is really on the research delivery side. Basically, research is typically a very close contact operations, especially when you're dealing with animals and data analysis and lab analysis. And so a lot of the research that we have funded right now has come to a pause. They are carrying on with kind of critical activities, especially seasonally time-sensitive ones where they can, including forage and crop planting, those types of things. But there's really varying degrees of activity, and we're taking it on a project-by-project basis to manage these things and work with the researchers. Researchers are passionate people and they want to be doing what they can. And so really it's about making sure they can do it safely and also making sure that we're addressing these things as we move forward, because this is a really dynamic process in the sense that it's changing daily. So we expect to understand a lot more as we start to see some restrictions relaxed in June and the implication it'll have on our coming research plan. We do kind of have two streams of research funding. One is the Beef Science Cluster, And that one's the one probably of greatest concern to us, because in the past, Ag Canada, who is our funding partner for that and funds 70% of the funding under it, they really don't let funds flow across years. And this is a concern, because in this situation, researchers are having to delay activities, and we're really pushing for Ag Canada to consider some funding flexibility of their funds. Otherwise, those funds will be lost. And in essence, we could lose a significant amount of the progress to date we've made. We do have the capacity to defer our funding, which is about 30% of the cluster budget. And this may be an option that we pursue. And really, it doesn't change the outcomes of the projects if we defer that. It just means that that funding is not going to be spent this year, and instead will be spent in the subsequent years of the cluster, which we have 3 more years of operation. The other area of programming we have relative to research is our priority research programming and proof of concept projects. We have about 25 projects that were in progress, and again, we're dealing with them on a case-by-case basis as to whether they're proceeding, whether they're on pause. Some of them have been deferred for the entire year. We have about 19 projects that were just under the contracting phase, and many of those we're just holding on to until we see when things can start up. Some have been deferred to 2021. And the big message here is most of the research institutions that we deal with, which we deal with about 28 across Canada, have taken the approach that they'll continue existing research where they can, but no new research will be started at this point in time. So again, what the implication for BCRC on this is that the industry funding through us, the deferral of it may be significant if we don't start to see things move forward in the next few months. That funding is contracted and those projects will proceed. So it's not that the money won't be spent, it's just the timing with which it'll be spent. We do have a funding call for new research projects that was set to launch in June. We still plan to launch that, knowing that those funding decisions aren't made till February 2021, and usually that contracting doesn't occur till mid-year, right about now. So we don't expect that to be impacted. In fact, we want to ensure that we can keep funding flowing for significant research that we're wanting to focus on, as well as ensuring that we've got grad students and postdocs and researchers well funded. The other area I'll focus on quickly is just around our extension programming. We talked about a bit before, but this programming continues with no interruption. Obviously, producers are looking for support on a regular basis as they make production decisions. And our goal here is to highlight research that we've seen. We are seeing a bit of an increased demand from Alberta, given they've changed through their provincial government. They eliminated most of their extension people. And so we're working to facilitate in Alberta and greater awareness for producers of the various extension networks, forage associations, those types of things, and also encouraging them to use our online resources. Just highlighting, we do have a weekly blog. We would encourage producers to subscribe to it. Number one, so you know where your checkoff funding is going. But number two, so you can see what we're producing on a regular basis that's relevant to your operation. We try to highlight not only research coming from our institutions, but also research and innovations that are happening on farm through that. So it is very, very relevant to producers as they kind of move through their seasonal cycles. We do webinars on a regular basis, and those are free. You just have to follow our blog, and they're advertised regularly, so we'd encourage looking at those. And we do have a lot of decision-making tools, and these are what come into play when we look at market disruptions and trying to determine things like what your feed quality is, winter feeding cost comparisons, your carrying capacity, but also things like body condition score and ensuring animal welfare is maintained as we look at marketing disruptions. Last but not least, the two other programs we oversee. The first is Verified Beef Production Plus. So we are responsible for the national delivery of that program. And we continue to move forward. On-farm auditing is occurring on a restricted basis, and it's a province-by-province decision. In essence, there's an evaluation if it can be done safely, and if it can, we will proceed with it. We have seen the addition of remote auditing on a requested and temporary basis, basically through the Canadian Roundtable Sustainable Beef and their verified beef framework. They've allowed us to move to remote auditing. I think the big thing here, to be clear, is if a producer chooses to go that remote auditing route, it allows him to become certified fairly immediately. That being said, within 12 months, we have to follow up with an on-farm audit once restrictions are removed. All training has been moved web-based and online, and we continue to work to supply the CRSB's Verified Sustainable Beef Framework. We do understand some market disruptions are occurring due to restrictions in food service demand and supply disruptions, but currently we continue to see demand for producers to become audited and become part of that Verified Sustainable Beef Framework. We do have 2 research chairs that were basically, we'd announced them and they were going through the hiring processes. We're still very excited about those chairs, and in essence, the biggest thing we've seen there is the hiring processes have been delayed, and will resume as soon as travel restrictions loosen up and as well as people can meet and convene. So with that, BCRC continues to operate in a very cohesive manner. Our team has gone remote and is doing awesome in responding as we have always in terms of delivery. I would encourage, if people have questions, to not hesitate to reach out to us, and we look forward to continuing to work with you in the future.